Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Show right here on Radio Nigeria, Coal City FM, Enugu. Today, on World Day Against Trafficking in Persons 2025, we confront a deeply disturbing reality: the thriving networks of organized human trafficking, a crime that tears apart lives, especially those of our children and women. This year's theme is a strong reminder: human trafficking is unorganized crime and the exploitation. I am your host, Ekene Odigwe. Joining me to unpack this theme and speak to the Nigerian experience is Barrister Ijeoma Ezeude, a legal practitioner, advocate against human trafficking, sexual and gender-based violence. A very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Human trafficking in the country is no longer random. It is systematic, coordinated, and increasingly transnational. Organized syndicates are exploiting our vulnerabilities. Barrister Ijeoma Ezeude, when we talk about human trafficking as organized crime, what does that actually imply in the Nigerian context? And again, how sophisticated are these trafficking networks that operate within and across our borders?
Human trafficking in Nigeria is a serious issue. It's often linked to organized crime. These criminal elements have networks that are sophisticated and operate both within Nigeria and across its borders, targeting vulnerable individuals, especially women and children. By sophistication, I mean that trafficking networks in Nigeria are well coordinated and operate transnationally, exploiting victims for forced labor, sex trafficking, and other forms of exploitation. Their targets are vulnerable people, are often lured with promises of jobs, marriage, or vocational training abroad, only to face abuse and exploitation. Transnational operations are synonymous with trafficking. Nigerian security agencies have busted trafficking syndicates involving victims from neighboring countries like Niger, Mali, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Togo. Law enforcement actions in Nigeria by the Nigerian Police Force and the NAPTIP have arrested suspects and rescued victims in various operations. International cooperation is also imperative to address both the root causes of high rates of trafficking in Nigeria.
Nigeria remains a source, transit, and destination country for human trafficking, according to research, especially in West Africa. But what factors had made the country particularly vulnerable to human trafficking? If there are factors, are they social, are they economic, or even political? These conditions, how are they fueling this crime at a large scale?
Nigeria as a country is vulnerable to human trafficking as a result of several socio-economic factors. Some of these factors include poverty and lack of opportunities. Poverty and limited economic opportunities make people more vulnerable to trafficking in Nigeria. Traffickers often lure victims with promises of jobs or better living conditions. Unemployment and underemployment have also contributed. Harsh economic conditions leading to unemployment and underemployment contribute to human trafficking in Nigeria. Nigeria is also densely populated with high insecurity, especially in the north-central, Benue State, and southeast and south-south. Political instability, insecurity also in the northeast, and also our porous borders have heightened the risk of human trafficking. Other contributing factors include cultural norms and tradition. In some customs, cultural practices include giving out young people, boys and girls, from poor homes to wealthy families where they are used as domestic help. This practice has exacerbated human trafficking. Also, limited awareness and education have made many Nigerians unaware of the dangers of human trafficking and the tactics used by traffickers. Efforts by legislation and law enforcement agencies, such laws like Trafficking in Persons Prohibition Enforcement and Administration Act to combat human trafficking, is also important. Also, awareness and support organizations like civil society groups, non-governmental organizations have also tried and also should continue to work to raise awareness and support victims of trafficking.
Children, especially those displaced, orphaned or living in poverty, are increasingly targeted by these traffickers. How serious is the threat of child trafficking in Nigeria today, and what kind of exploitation are these children typically subjected to?
On the issue of child trafficking is also on the increase, which is a serious crime and a threat against humanity. Children are subjected to all forms of forced labor. Child trafficking is a serious and growing concern in Nigeria. Children are seen in major cities, used in soliciting alms and also street begging. They are subjected to various forms of forced labor, including working in dangerous environments like construction companies, agricultural settings, and domestic work with little or no supervision. They may also be victims of sexual exploitation, forced marriages, and even used in drug trafficking. Different forms of child trafficking are rife in Nigeria. Some of these include forced labor. Children are made to work in harsh conditions with minimal or no wages. Sexual exploitation of both boys and girls are on the increase. Boys and girls are victims. They are frequently exploited, especially girls are more vulnerable to trafficking and sexual exploitation. Forced marriages, girls are often trafficked for forced marriages. Also, drug trafficking, children may be used in the drug trade by traffickers. What are the likely factors that contribute to child trafficking in Nigeria? Poverty is the number one. Families living in abject poverty may be more vulnerable to trafficking. Lack of education, limited awareness and education about trafficking, risk that contribute to the problem. Unemployment, economic instability can also contribute to child trafficking. Efforts to combat child trafficking by law enforcement agencies NAPTIP should be on the increase to bust trafficking syndicates. Also, awareness campaigns. Organizations should engage in educating communities about trafficking and preventive measures, and also the risks involved in these trafficking activities.
Gone are the days traffickers would use force. Today, they don't always use force. Many use deceit, false promises, and emotional manipulation. Question is, what methods are traffickers using in Nigeria to lure or recruit victims, especially young children, girls? And are we seeing more use of technology or family links or even radicalization as part of this fraudulent thing? And how about job offers?
What then are the methods used by traffickers to lure their victims? Traffickers in Nigeria, they use various methods, often exploiting their vulnerabilities and making false promises. Some of these common methods include false job promises. Traffickers often lure victims with promises of well-paying jobs, either locally or abroad. Promises of education or training. Traffickers may promise victims opportunities for education, vocational training or skill employment. Marriage or relationship proposals. Some traffickers lure victims with proposals of marriage or romantic relationships, or they use deceptive recruitment. Traffickers might use family connections, friends, or acquaintances to gain trust and recruit victims. Tactics used to exploit victims also include coercion and manipulative activities. Once victims are under their control, traffickers use coercion, threats, or manipulation to exploit them. They also use debt bondage. Some traffickers use debt bondage to control victims, telling them they must work to pay off a debt. Their vulnerabilities of their victims include poverty and lack of opportunities, of course. Traffickers often target individuals in low-income communities that are suffering from poverty or with limited economic opportunity, or individuals that have limited awareness. Victims may not be aware of the risk of human trafficking. Efforts should also be targeted at raising awareness in the communities through working with organizations that combat trafficking and to enlighten and educate communities about trafficking and the risks and preventive measures. Law enforcement agencies like the police, the NAPTIP, should also work assiduously to continue to bust trafficking syndicates and protect victims in the country.
Too often, trafficking thrives in silence. Many communities don't speak up, sometimes out of fear and other times out of ignorance. Well, if you're just joining us on today's episode, we are talking World Day Against Trafficking in Persons 2025, right here on Radio Nigeria Breakfast Show. And we are shining a spotlight on a growing global crisis, human trafficking as organized crime, with the urgent call to end the exploitation. Our guest is Barrister Ijeoma Ezeude. Is a legal practitioner, advocate against human trafficking, sexual and gender-based violence. My name is Ekene Odigwe. Now, Barrister Ijeoma Ezeude, in your view, what practical steps can ordinary citizens and local communities take to recognize the signs of these traffickers or signs that someone is being trafficked and help disrupt these criminal networks before more lives are destroyed?
What are practical steps that ordinary citizens can take to curb trafficking? Well, ordinary citizens can play a very vital role in curbing trafficking by taking practical steps. Some of these steps include report, see something, say something. What I mean is report suspicious activities, especially via the social media. The advent of digitization and digital technology have increased the rate of trafficking in the country, especially among our youths. If you suspect any illicit activity of the year, you should report or notice suspicious movements. Report to law enforcement agencies like NAPTIP. Awareness campaign to educate people in the community, local communities, about the risk of human trafficking and how to prevent it is also important. Citizens should support anti-trafficking efforts by supporting organizations, civil society groups, for instance, that work closely to prevent human trafficking and to protect victims of trafficking. People should also be vigilant and cautious of unusual opportunities that are too good to be true, and be wary of job or travel opportunities that seem too good to be true or involve suspicious circumstances. Community involvement in outreach programs is also important. Engaging in community outreach and education to raise awareness about human trafficking is key. Also support vulnerable groups like women and children. Also persons with disabilities. Persons with disabilities are also very prone to trafficking, as they are sometimes used for ritual killings and the rest of it. So vulnerable groups should be supported by civil society organizations and also collaborate with international partners to make sure that they are not susceptible to trafficking. Collaboration with authorities, community gatekeepers and rural community heads should also collaborate with authorities like NAPTIP to report suspected and illicit activities, cases, and also support victims of trafficking. Supporting victims of trafficking by providing psychosocial support and other forms of services is imperative. Information on how to seek help is also important. By taking some of these practical steps, ordinary citizens can contribute to curbing human trafficking in their communities.
No organized crime can thrive without corruption. Traffickers often rely on weak systems, bribery, and lack of enforcement. How much of a challenge is corruption and institutional complicity in fighting trafficking here in Nigeria?
Corruption or institutional complicity is also an activity that can hinder the fight against trafficking. What do I mean by corruption and institutional complicity? It means cases where there is obstruction of justice. Corruption within law enforcement or government agency can obstruct justice for trafficking victims and enable traffickers to operate with impunity. The resultant effect is that traffickers continue to be recycled in the society. Where justice is not demanded or where justice is not there, the effect may be that these traffickers will be recycled back into to perpetrate these crimes. Reduced effectiveness of anti-trafficking efforts is also an effect of corruption and institutional complicity. Institutional complicity can undermine the effectiveness of anti-trafficking laws and initiatives. Also enabling traffickers, in some cases, officials or security agencies might turn a blind eye to trafficking, which doesn't occur well and the fight against trafficking. Activities or even support traffickers exacerbate this problem. And some of the challenges in addressing corruption include lack of accountability. Corruption can lead to lack of accountability among officials, making it harder to combat trafficking. There is need for transparency and oversight. Strengthening transparency and oversight within institutions can help mitigate corruption impact. Effort to address corruption in anti-trafficking is important through strengthening institutions. Building capacity and integrity within institutions like NAPTIP can also help combat corruption. Promoting accountability, ensuring accountability for officials involved in corruption or complicity is crucial for effective anti-corruption activities.
We understand strong laws exist, but enforcement remains a challenge. Do you believe our current legal and institutional frameworks are built to combat this? Take, for instance, NAPTIP and other state task forces. Are they adequately equipped to tackle human trafficking as organized crime? And are there gaps that urgently need to be addressed?
Are there adequate current legal framework to fight trafficking? Yes, there is. Nigeria has a legal framework to combat human trafficking. The primary legislation is Trafficking in Persons Prohibition Act 2015. This law provides a comprehensive framework for prohibiting, preventing, detecting, prosecution, and punishing human trafficking. It is also the law that establishes the NAPTIP, the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, to protect victims of human trafficking. Human trafficking include recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring or receipt of persons through threat, force, coercion, abduction, fraud, or deception. Challenges and criticisms of the law is that the non-implementation of the law is at the snail's pace. It is encouraged that quick implementation should also be enhanced so that traffickers will be caught and prosecuted. The need for more policies on the nature of human trafficking is also important, and also for citizens to continue to be enlightened on the provisions of the law.
Today isn't just about awareness. It is a call to act, to protect, to prevent, and to prosecute. As we observe World Day Against Trafficking in Persons under the theme Human Trafficking is Organized Crime and the Exploitation, what is your message to Nigerian parents, youths, and policymakers?
The message to Nigerians on World Day Trafficking in Persons with the theme Human Trafficking is Organized Crime and the Exploitation now is to raise awareness about the seriousness of this human trafficking and its impact on individuals and communities. There should be awareness and vigilance. Nigerians should be aware of the risk of human trafficking and be vigilant in their communities. Also, social media awareness campaign should also be heightened because social media activities, online activities are on the increase. Our youth should be enlightened on the dangers and risks of human trafficking. See something, say something. Reporting suspicious activities. People should report any suspicious activities or suspected cases of trafficking to authorities like the NAPTIP. Individuals and citizens should support anti-trafficking efforts. Supporting anti-trafficking efforts will help to prevent human trafficking and protect victims. Also, empowerment through education is important. Educate yourself and others about human trafficking to help prevent the scourge of trafficking. A call to action for Nigeria is for parents and guardians. Be cautious about the safety and security of children and vulnerable individuals under your care. Youths should be aware of the risk of human trafficking and make informed decisions about opportunities. Policymakers should strengthen laws and enforcement to combat human trafficking effectively. By working together, Nigerians can contribute to ending the exploitation of human trafficking.
Thank you so much, Barrister Ijeoma Ezeude, a legal practitioner, advocate against human trafficking, sexual and gender-based violence, for your powerful insights. Listener, the message is clear. Trafficking is not random. It is organized, and we must be organized too if our fight is to yield results. If you see something suspicious, report it. If you are unsure, ask questions, because one voice, one action, one alert can save a life. Thanks for being part of our show this morning on Breakfast Show on Radio Nigeria, Coast City 929 FM. Producers has been Jude Obu and Anayo Egere. Supervisor is the General Manager, Coast City 929 FM, Joy Obitilata. And the Executive Producer is the Zonal Director, FRCN, Southeast Zone, Dr. Ike Chukwueze. My name is Ekene Odigwe. Thanking you for joining us. Good morning.